Five, four, three, two, one, and we are live. Whenever you are, wherever you are, thank you for joining the Design of Everyday People podcast, where I talk to senior designers from all over the world and where you get to ask them literally anything. So stick around to the end where you get your questions answered. But like always, let's make this as interactive as possible and drop an emoji from wherever you are listening to this conversation from. And let me check. We are on YouTube, and I think LinkedIn, we're about to come up. So without further ado, let me play the intro video. This is the design of everyday people. And before we get started, I want to talk to you about Lyssna, our partner for today. Lyssna is your go-to user research platform. The best teams like Miro, Asana, and Figma use Lyssna to deeply understand their audience and to keep them moving in the right direction. Lyssna has tools like moderated interviews, unmoderated tests, surveys, recordings, and my favorite recruitment tool to find your target users without leaving the office. And they've just released this tool that I've shown on the screen here, which is called live user testing. And today they are offering folks who are listening to this conversation $20 absolutely free off your user test. All you need to do is just scan this QR code and or the one in the corner as we go through this, and you'll get $20 off your first test. So you could do this for your portfolio, for the website that you're about to launch, just literally anything you can think of. So it's only valid for the first 100 users. So scan that QR code to get $20 off. And I'll leave that again, QR code in the corner as we go through this event. I'll also paste that in the chat for anybody wanting just a quick link to the website. All right, let's actually get back to the show. So today's conversation is how to be a design engineer. And let's start with quick introductions. As always, let me take this off screen. I'm Chris, the founder of UX Playbook. But before that, a self taught designer struggling to get into UX. And now I spend most of my time helping designers navigate a fuzzy UX career with UX Playbook, from building your first portfolio to leading your first design team. But that's enough about me. Today, I'm joined by Will King, a product designer, a self-taught software engineer, and now combining those two, a design engineer. So let's get Will out and see how he's doing. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing pretty good. Good to be here today, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So for the people that don't know you, Will, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a design engineer at Crunchy Data. We do it's like a managed Postgres database service. I'm on the cloud team. I do design and engineering. We don't actually have like a design team of any kind. So I kind of run design while also like helping build out those designs as well, along with a couple other front end engineers. And then besides that, I just create fun stuff and share them and make friends on the internet. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, X, whatever people call it these days, I'm always happy to chat.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Will. I think I just saw some people scan this QR code. Maybe I need to put this one on instead. So it is that $20 off. But just get straight into it, man. Like
Let's
the
do it.
lines between design and code are blurring, right? Like traditional
Right.
careers path kind of force you to pick a lane where it's like, I only write code, or I'm just a designer. That's not my department, or someone else handles that part, right? But I
Hmm.
think for someone like you, Will, you can design and code. You love being creative, you love building stuff. So, you've kind of found a perfect spot for you because you're a design engineer. You do both, right? So,
Right.
I think the perfect place to start here is like, let's just define what a design engineer is, or how do you define it?
Sure, sure. So, design engineers just kind of surfaced as a term within like the last year or two, I think, just as like people's recognition of like you can do on the web platform or on mobile. That they're like they started noticing that people who design start actually building out the experiences that they're designing a lot more. So really, like, I don't know, like design engineer is just like a word they've tried to give to people that have always existed, in my opinion, which is like people who just like love creating so much, they're gonna like learn all the skills that they need to bring whatever they're coming up with into reality. Um, and I think from a more like technical job description perspective, like a design engineer is somebody who sits on the design team whose like job is to allow like the pure designers on the team and build out the experiences and explore a lot faster in like the actual medium that you're building for. That's the way I like to think about it, is like designing in Figma or like prototyping tools only gets you so far, but you can iterate a lot quicker, get a lot better like finesse on your designs if you're actually building in the medium that your like final result is going to be in. So I think that's kind of like where the role has surfaced a lot more, is just like the that position on the team to like help your designers like iterate and create just better experiences faster.
Right. And I guess the follow up here is like, okay, so you're a designer. I'm guessing that most design engineer designers are like product designers, but what about the engineering side? Are you like supposed to be full stack? Are you more front end? Are you more back end? Are you like, what are you?
Right.
You have to be
Yeah,
about.
okay, so like that's kind of what I was getting at, is that like there may be a technical title for it now, but like the people have always existed, and you probably have known them on teams that you've worked at, which is like there's always somebody who just like gets it done no matter what. Like whoever, like they have an idea, they're going to put it together in a way that like people can like experience it, explore it, they're pushing on it, whether like, hey, that's like not my job, but I'm doing it anyway because like I want to see this idea become a reality. So I think that it's like there are plenty of engineers who like will start making something and put together design, and they start getting a feeling for that the more time that they spend doing it. And there are plenty of designers who are like, well, I want to make this thing that I've made the way that I actually that's actually how I got started. So like I came from an industrial design background in school, and then started getting into like web and digital design. And once I started doing that, part of like industrial design as like a career is like you're prototyping like models and like actually building the things that you're designing like as part of your career, because like it's physical products. You have to be able to feel the design, the contours, like how does it function? You've got to be able to like actually experience those things to know if you did a good job designing it. You can't just like make a 3D model, draw a sketch and be like it's perfect, there's no bugs. You know, like there's nothing wrong with this product. Like you've got to make it. So when I started getting into like digital design and would like finish a Figma prototype, or like back then it was like, I think like Sketch had just started coming out when I started. Um, you'd finish this like very static design. I'd hand it off to like some engineer to like put in to like reality, and it'd come back like nothing like I had imagined it in the design. But like I could see how it seemed like what I designed, but like I knew that something was off about it. And it just got so frustrating that I just like went out and learned how to build it myself, because I was like, I need this to be built how I meant for it to be built. And like when I started doing that, then I like realized like how hard that can actually be. Like, oh, there are like weird, like I meant for it to do this, but like when I started doing it that way, it doesn't like in the actual medium, you know, that you're trying to build it, like, oh, it doesn't feel quite right. Like, or, you know, screens change all sorts of different sizes. Like, oh, like what I designed at this, like really doesn't work that well at this like weird edge of the screen sizing. So like being able to like, that's like, I think the big part of like this what I just call it like cross discipline. Like it's design engineer, but like really you're just somebody who is like like overlapping skill sets that are like they are very collaborative skill sets. So when you learn both of them, like you're creating like a better process, a better way to like communicate and build something, because what you realize is like engineers just build with them, and they may be like, oh, this thing doesn't work when I try to do this. And so like until you're the one building it, like you can move a lot faster, because as soon as that feels off, you're like, oh, well, let me just make this small change because I know what to do. Whereas like an engineer is just like, hey, something's like, one, they may not even notice something's off. They just build it, like they don't care. They have no like intuition for that. And then two, it's like the engineers may notice something's off, but now we've got to go back through like the full loop of like, well, let me send this back off to the designer, let them spend looking at it, figuring it out. They'll figure out the solution, come back to me with the solution, and then I've got to translate that into like code, etc. So like that's kind of like my background, is like I came from design to engineering. I fell in love with the engineering side of it, and I've been doing engineering for so long now that like I actually have to like go back and like keep practicing my design to make sure like the skill sets like off balance a little bit. Like there are designers who code who like they don't dive super deep into the code. It's just like enough to give them like a static instance of it. Like there's no like backend or data backing it up. They're just building the like the pure like front end implementation of it. Then there are like other people who are like they're full back end engineers who know front end, and like they know enough of to like notice, hey, like this is a little off what like this is like where I think a role really shines if you're an engineer and you want to like cross over into design a little bit, like learn your basic rules of like design, like grid balance, composition, like all those fundamentals being what a designer intended, and be able to like, oh, well, I don't need to bother to the designer about this like weird edge case. They've given me like 85 to 90% of the design. I can make some intuition and some jumps in like the places that are missed in the design. And like teams just can like velocity just explodes when you have people who are like that, like these cross discipline people. And that's like whether it's design and engineering, like front end engineering, whether it's like front end engineers who also know back end engineering, or like front end design who also know marketing, like or content, like all of these different disciplines. The more like cross discipline you are, like the faster you can help your team move, because you can make like decisions faster, and that's what cripples like team velocity, and like why this role has become so popular is because like the velocity and the need for products to like be built faster these days is just skyrocketing. And so the more the more people you can find for your team who can make decisions without having to like stop and wait for someone to tell them what to do, like the more valuable and like productive your team is.
Yeah. And yeah, I really like that. The value of like cross discipline. What happens when a design engineer sort of leaves the team? Like, does then, like, because they've created so much, right, from the design to the actual code itself, does that causes some problems in terms of like jumping in? Because if you're taking one part of the discipline or the other part, maybe that's easier to transition. I'm not sure, but have you worked with other design engineers on your team that you're like, holy crap, this guy left, and like I don't know what the hell's going on because he had so much in his brain. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right, right, right. I mean, I think that's a problem just in general. Like it's all about how you work with other people.
Mm.
Like whether you're just a designer, or like this happens a ton in engineering too. Like if you have like a team with only like one or two people, it is really easy to move quickly and not document a lot, because like you communicate a lot between just each other, and like so you've built systems without a lot of documentation around them because you both have worked in it so deeply. It doesn't matter. And then what always happens is like the team grows, the product grows, you need to bring in another engineer, and then like everything comes screeching to a halt because you're like, oh yeah, like we've got to like get all of this stuff out of our brain, this like institutional knowledge. And I think that's a problem, whether it's like because of a single person who's kind of been doing a lot, or if it's like a couple, like you've got a really small team that works well without needing to document a lot. At some point, you're going to hit a scale or a situation where like, oh crap, like yeah, we did need to document and do a lot of that stuff that we didn't. Like just good hygiene for like a product that like sometimes you don't have the space to, like your early startup, you're scrappy quick, the product's constantly changing, so it's like a waste of time to do that. So it's like usually the time when you hit that problem is the time when you have the, I guess like the space to make that a priority, because like, oh, the product's becoming more stable, we're growing, now we need to formalize more things, both on like a design system type situation and also like a code architecture situation. So I think that kind of, you can get into that issue, but it's not necessarily a problem of like the role, it's more of like a like problem of like your team's like operations.
Right, right. Like, yeah, like process stuff. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Um, Something else I wanted to ask you, which is like, um, let's say, okay, you're either a designer or you're a developer, and you like the other discipline,
Mhm.
and you're like, okay, you want to invest more time in design or more time learning how to code. Like, what does uh, paths look like? How can folks actually kind of navigate
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So I would call it, I'd say let's go with design to engineer first, because that one I think is going to resonate probably a little bit more with your audience, which is start just like trying to build little pieces of your own like designs. Uh, it is how I would recommend doing this drastically in the last year and a half. Can do with like the new AI tools. Now, I'm not saying like like this is the important part, is like don't go into it thinking AI is going to build your design for you. But what you can do is like take your design, put it into one of these tools, ChatGPT, Claude, like whatever, um, and then review the code that it's putting out to understand the connection between like your design and the code that's being put out. And the way that I would do that is like by starting with like very small pieces of the design. Like don't put in like a full page and be like, make this a design, because it's going to spit out so much code that your head's just going to like if you've not used, like if you've not like, if you know nothing about code. Now like if you have some experience with it, like that is like where you want to start, you could start moving to. But like start with like a single like card component, then maybe move to like a bento box design where it's like multiple cards. Start with like a button even, or like a form, like small discrete pieces of your UI, and just see what code is output, and like there are, thankfully there are like with Claude, I think especially they've actually got like a canvas where you can look at the code and look at what the output is, and you can like start changing some of the values to see how that changes the design. And then like ask a ton of questions, like of the AI. Like normally the way this works in a regular career is like you find some senior engineer or a like regular engineer on your team, and you just bug them with a lot of questions. Like you start learning, and then you just ask them, like, "Hey, I built this. Like, what would like? How could I do this better? What does this mean? What does this element mean?" Like now you can say, like, "Okay, hey, like it output this code. Like, how do I change the border color?" And it can give you a very detailed explanation. Well, okay, like what if I want to change it to like the shadow to be like more spread out? How would I do that? Like just, you can just hammer it over and over with all these questions, and it will give you detailed answers. And so like that's the way I would think about it, is like think of it as like a very, very patient mentor, and a way to like take the things that you have designed, try to build them, and then like when it builds it, identify the places where it looks off, and say like, hey, like this, the shadow on this card looks off. How do I change the shadow? It'll tell you how. And like you can start like learning in like little pieces like that. And it's like you can bring value to your team without necessarily needing to like go straight from design to full engineer. The way that I think is like the most valuable way to like get your foot in the door with design is not like giving them full prototypes out of the gate, but just showing like, if a lot of like clear like animation in mind for more interactive elements, if you can put that into code for them, that like the actual like that's like one thing you can't capture as good in like Figma. There are other tools that give it to you, they have that are out there these days. But if you could just give the animation to them in code, you have saved them like the thing that is like the most time consuming part of any design implementation, which is like the things that are changing, not necessarily just the things that are there. So like you could start there where it's like, hey, there's this whole design, but like for this thing, when it goes from this to this is what I expect it to do and how I expect it to do it. Versus like engineers, like they're gonna take the easy path, which is like, okay, I'm going to put in, this is going to be some engineering terminology. Like there's some shorthand where it's like, okay, when this goes from like this side to this side, I'm just going to throw like an easing curve, one of the default easing curves on it, ease in, ease out, ease in, out. If the engineer's like, I don't know, sounds good, like they're not thinking too closely about it, unless you're like holding their hand throughout the whole thing. But like if you just give them, hey, this is the code for how I expect this to move from here to here, like you're starting to get those like little pieces of like what makes a designer who codes valuable.
Do you think in the world of the tools that we have today, especially with like ChatGPT and Claude, is it still valuable for designers to do like a boot camp or like other sorts of education around this, or do you think they should just
Um,
jump straight in?
I always think you should jump straight in regardless. So the way that so even when I learned, so I learned through a company called Skill Crush back in the day. Um, it was like a boot camp kind of situation. I think they can still be valuable just from the perspective of like, and I'll tell you that I'll actually give you the story in a minute on like why I think they could be valuable. Um, but even when I did that, like I was just building on my own in the meantime. Like everything that I learned from the boot camp, I was on my own doing that 20 more times to like try and build it myself. I was like going beyond what the lessons before we even got to a specific lesson. I was always already trying to like code and build stuff. I was downloading back in the day like bootstrap templates and going in and changing little pieces of it to see like, okay, well, like if I wanted it to do this, like let me try. And so like if you're somebody who that's like why I was saying what I was saying. Like if you're somebody who wants to be building the things that you're designing, you're gonna find a way to do it. And I think I do think that like there's a place for a bootstrap or a course, um, a boot camp or a course, but like with AI these days, like go ahead until you find like the and this is like the valuable part, the community that you want to be a part of. So like the reason why I think like a course or a boot camp can be valuable is like community, like getting other people who are also trying to learn. Now that may not it doesn't have to be like a boot camp or a course. Like there could just be a community of people who like aren't paying to be a part of it that are all trying to learn, who are designers trying to learn how to code. And like you have people to like commiserate with or to like share cool things that you're learning or like things that um tripped you up that hopefully won't trip other people up, or just to like be excited about the things that you're making. Like that's the part, like that's like the motivation part of it. The knowledge part and the skill part of it, I don't think you necessarily like need a course or a boot camp these days for. There's just like so many tools and like resources to like get across the finish line. You don't need somebody there to like tell you how to do it, but you do need other people to motivate you to do it. AI is not going to motivate you to keep trying. Like you either have to have that intrinsically or you need to find like a group of people who are going to like help push you to do that. And then also the story for like why I think it could be valuable. Like the way that I got my first job was I went to one of these coding boot camp, these courses online that had like a little community. And for every exercise that we did, I was like going to the nines with the design. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing code wise, but like I can design this. So like let me make it look good, even if the code may be trash. Like I'm gonna at least make sure that like what they're seeing is like really good. And like apparently that was not something anybody else was doing at the time. And so When I started looking for my first remote job, I noticed that the company that I learned from was like hiring for a like assistant web design instructor part-time role kind of thing that I could get my foot in the door of like doing remote work. My wife was about to be graduating college and she's a garden teacher. And so her job is like extremely location dependent. And like at the time, like mine was too. And I was trying to get out of that. And so like I was like, oh, this will be great. Like this will get my foot in the door and I can find like freelance opportunities to like pull in some more money, that kind of thing. And I go to them and I'm like, hey, like I'm interested in this assistant. And they're like, wait, are you Will from like a couple months ago taking the course, Will? I'm like, yes. Why? Like, I'm like not sure why they're like asking this. And they're like, we shared all of your work around the entire company because like nobody else was designing like the exercises and putting effort into it the way that you were. Like, assistant is like too low of a position. Like, could you just be our full-time like web design instructor? And I'm like, sold. You know, like, yeah, I'm in. So like I went ahead and did that. And that was like my first job in tech as remote. Was like a web I was like a web design instructor. And through that in the company, because that's also where I was learning to code, they knew I wanted to do code. So they're like, hey, do you want to like help do some of the front end work to like build our platform, etc. And so like that's what got my foot in the door is like I took the course, I like put in some extra work for it and like they knew who I was. So if like you're learning on your own in isolation, like find a community, like start sharing, or like if you're at a company, like start building those little things inside, even if it's not something that goes to production, just sharing like actual prototypes of a like a finished or working example of the design in code can like start getting your foot in the door of like people realizing, oh, like they do want to write more code and like, oh, this is like very helpful for like helping our team's velocity, because like that's one less question that our like engineers have to ask when it comes to implementation, because they've got like an example to work off of in like the medium that they're expecting to work in.
Yeah, that's such a cool story that they were just sharing your work and they're like, "Absolutely, you're hired," and you're like,
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, like going the extra mile is so underrated in general when working with people, and yeah, folks really appreciate it. And clearly, you did something really well as well. So that's amazing.
Well, I wouldn't say so now, but at the time, it was really good. It was really good, you know, but then you look back at it these days and you're like, "Ooh," as we all do with
Exactly,
our old work,
exactly.
you know?
Well, you mentioned AI, so I think this is a really good segue into like what does AI mean for design engineers, like whether it's building products or just uh, the role in itself. What does it mean?
Mhm. To me, it means like velocity. Um, velocity and like, what I've been talking about, which is like being cross discipline. Like that's the whole to me, that's like if you're a design engineer, it's because you enjoy like doing multiple disciplines and bringing the value that is of like being able to speak both sides of that equation. You know, like that's a lot of where I found the most value in the work that I do is not necessarily in the design that I do, not necessarily in the engineering that I do, but in like my ability to understand where like both sides are coming from. Like I know, like, you know, like you've had the classical thing where it's like the designer wants this like super crazy thing, or the engineers think they want this super crazy thing because of how it's like been designed, but the engineers are like, no, we can't do that. You know, like when you're cross discipline, like you understand like the intention that the designers have, so you can be like, well, hey, like technically we cannot do that on the web platform, like that's just not possible in the medium that we have to work in, but you I know your intention for that was to do like XYZ, so like you are the like connective thread between that communication to like reduce a lot of the friction. And so like what AI I think does is like it can allow you as a designer to like get those questions out of the way on your own. So like even if you're not full engineer yet, you can say like, "Hey, here's my design. I'm wanting it to do this, this, and this. Like, like how would I be able to do that? Can you do that?" Like you can just throw all these questions at it to like just start seeing like, are the ideas that I'm having are they possible? How would I communicate this to an engineer for how to like think about what I want this design to do? And then like that just like increases the velocity of your team. It increases like the like communication between your team. And like I said, I think that's like a really good place for AI to be, is that like um just your ability to like understand other disciplines, maybe not like obviously not as deeply, but like I'll give you an example. So like one example that I've done recently is like I've been trying to build a game engine in like in a new language, and like if I just tried to like Google for the answers, like I would not know, like I don't know the terminology. Like if there's one thing that like designers and especially engineers know is like before AI, one of your highest skills was knowing how to Google search a problem to find an answer when you're running into an issue. And it's knowledge to use to ask to like isolate that answer. And then like what AI unlocks is like now I didn't have to know all the game engine terminology. I could just be like, "Hey, I'm trying to build a game engine. This is like the thing that I'm wanting to do. Like, how would I approach this? Like, what's the architecture for it? Blah 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 blah." And it outputs all these things where it's like, "Oh, like what you're talking about is actually called blah blah blah," and like it like terminology that discipline industry that I've not been a part of, like that's what the terminology is they use. So now when I go to talk to people about it or other people who have built games, like I know how to talk to them about like the problems or issues that I'm running into, because at some point AI can't answer everything. Like it's good. It's pretty good these days. But it's not your problems. But what it can give you is like the language to discuss those problems, and allow you to like dive deeper into like just like the discipline's knowledge base, to be able to like isolate more easily like the right question to ask to get an answer from somebody.
Right, right. I mean, we had this question fly in from here. I think perfect time to ask it, which is, what are some of the
Mhm.
design AI tools that you currently use? Do you use any design AI tools? Maybe that we'll start there.
So I use ChatGPT a bunch, for like the code side of things. And I use like Cursor and such as well for like a bunch of the engineering stuff, because it's like very easy to like get a lot of like the low level stuff. As far as like the design side of things, I think the design AI tools are a little early at the moment in terms of like the ability to like let me think about it this way. They're not the best product design AI tools yet. There are a lot of really good visual design AI tools. So like if you are making let's say like you're making like marketing landing pages, you're making like graphic design like posters and like advertisements or content, that kind of stuff, like Mid Journey, fantastic, incredible tool. Recently, OpenAI's like new image
So
generation is
good.
like very good as well for like when you're saying like, hey, reference this picture and do something different while still maintaining who this person is in this new scenario. Um, that kind of stuff, or like take this product and put it into this kind of scene with this kind of lighting, like those type of tools. And like the same with like Mid Journey for like output, if you want to get output some kind of like more abstract type things, like they are great for creative asset. That's like where the space has really started to shine currently. But I've not found a lot of value in like the fidelity being output by AI tools for product design, like layouts, buttons, like forms, like actual browser elements. It's I've just at this point in my career, like I've had so much repetition and experience with these kind of things. Like I can iterate a lot quicker without them. But like the power of AI tools to give me creative assets to use in layouts in all of the more like user experience side of the design of things is like that's where I think currently AI tools are like pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, Did you have anything else that you wanted to sort of close the loop on, like, what does AI mean for design engineers before we jump into questions?
I think the only thing that I would like close the loop on with AI is just like don't sleep on it. Like even if like for instance me like I said, like I don't get like my skill set is still better than what AI can put out for like product design. Um but you shouldn't be sleeping on it in terms of like trying to like use it and practice with it, because like there's still value to be found there. And like at some point, like just last year, the ability for it to output creative assets at the level that it is now was like nowhere close. And like I was like, I'm not even going to use it for that. But like within a year, if I had not started exploring it previously, like I would not be able to like create the level of imagery that I am now able to do because of my like experience having tried to use it. So just say like try to get out there, just see what it can do. See what like places it can fill currently in your role, because like this is all moving very fast. And the people who are going to use it, they're not going to like take your job or anything, but like it will, like having that skill set will make you better at your job and more attractive for new jobs, I think. In like just like the velocity and like the type of output that you'll be able to put out that you weren't necessarily able to do on your own or like as quickly on your own before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of like, imagine one person had Google and the other person didn't have Google and wasn't allowed to use the
Exactly.
internet to
Yeah,
research
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
kind of gotta, use Google these days. So I feel like AI is the same here. Okay, let's jump into some questions.
Yep.
Okay, the first one. Since design engineering is still an emerging role, what kind of difficulties do you face in your daily work?
Gotcha. So I don't know if I'm necessarily the best one to answer this one specifically, because I've always been a design engineering is a, like I've mentioned, like a new role in terms of like actually being a part of the job description. But it is not like a new discipline inside of companies. There have always been design engineers in a company, and like usually the way that that is shown up is like working at like startups, like a more mature organization like Meta or Google or big products, Airbnb, etc. Like you're not going to have, you will, it's starting to show up now, but like they've never had explicit roles for people who are both disciplines. But within the companies, you'll probably find people who do that. Even if they live on the design team, there's always been people who will like prototype and code. If they're like coders, there's always been like some engineers who are like gonna like put a design together because they just want to see something exist. Um, and like you see that even more in which is me. I've always worked in startups. Like I've always worked with small companies, small teams where like I have to wear a bunch of hats because I'm good at doing that. Like that's my skill set. Like I'm good at wearing, whether it's design, engineering, product, thinking about like business. Like I have just always enjoyed the full aspect of like building a software business. And so like I've always dove into like each piece of the puzzle. Startups find those positions, come in as a designer, but if you're working at a small team, like a small startup, like you're gonna do a bunch of stuff, whether it's your title or not. So like as far as like challenges you may like find in your daily work, I don't have necessarily the best answer for that, which is just like if you go to a company who like where they are hiring for a design engineer, then like you're good. Like they have an understanding of like what that role is. There are not a ton of companies who are doing that, hiring for that role right now. But if it's something that you want to be doing and there's not like a technical job title for that at your company, nobody's gonna like nobody's gonna like be mad at you for like coming up with like an actual like working prototype to hand off to engineers. So you start small, start building these like handoffs that are using code itself. And like you will quickly find out whether your company values that or not. And like then you can make some personal decisions of your own if you want to stay or like look somewhere else for a place that does value that. But like most places are not going to be like, "Oh, no, like, you helped our engineers move faster by giving them a higher fidelity, like, starting point, like, how dare you?" You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
even if
yeah.
they don't use your exact code, like, they speak code, so when they see that, it makes a lot more sense to them to, like, kick off their process faster. So
I guess the follow-up question to this, Will, is that if you're a design engineer, are you expected to do way more than anybody else that's a designer or an engineer? Will you just get vomited the amount of work because you can do both? So therefore, instead of hiring two people, let's just say that you're replacing one person's 40-hour week with, two people's 80-hour week. Does that happen?
mhm. Depends. So, like, if you work at startups, like, you're already doing that anyway. Like, you chose to work at all, like, growing startup from, like, your plate, like, your work. But if you're, like, working at, like, a larger company where, like, they've come up with a design engineering role specifically, like, I don't think you from what my understanding is from my, peers that are design engineers and, like, talking to them about the work that they do, you're either at a startup or you're at a bigger company that has that role, and like your job is not in necessarily like pure design anymore. Like you're not the one who's creating the entire design. Generally, you're paired up. The teams are paired up where it's like there's like a designer, there's an engineer, and there's a design engineer who helps like make that whole team cohesive. So like as the designer is coming up with the visuals of the product and like the page, the design engineer is starting to prototype what that all looks like. Like you're building out the interactions, you're building out like the structure of the page, of the elements of the layout, and then you work with like your paired up engineer to start pulling in like the data and like the actual like dynamic part of what makes the page work within like the larger architecture of the system. So like as you start understanding engineering more, you realize that there are even layers there where it's like there's like static front end code, there's like adding in dynamic data to that. Then even further behind that, it's like getting all the data from like your servers and your API database, all that layer. Then there's like your infrastructure, like it just keeps going. So like you generally at like a larger company, your design engineer is just like living in that space to where like you're just speeding up these two people's jobs by creating like what both of them need. Like you're making their designs like like visual like in the medium so that they can look at it and be like, "Oh, like that's a little off. Like I didn't want it to look like that." And you speak design so y'all can iterate really quickly on like new designs. And
Mhm.
then with the design engineer and the front end engineer, the front end engineer can be like, oh, hey, like we don't actually have access to that kind of data, or we like our system works this way instead of that. So like you can help them move a lot quicker because you're like, hey, here's the component. You just put the data into it to make it function. And then y'all can like work together on like the details of that. So like your job is just to speed up a single team's process by like speaking both of their language and like ramping up that velocity. So like
Mhm.
you're not doing more work, you're just helping facilitate like the work that's already being done.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And just to reiterate, if you do work for a startup, you have signed up for that 80-hour work week. And that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. If some people
Yeah.
enjoy like, those hours and just getting knee deep into that work. So whatever floats your boat. Okay, next question. What is your advice for landing your first design engineer job for someone who is experienced designer? Let's say you learn some basics. I've mentioned. Oh, this cuts it up. But you've mentioned that. How would you approach a company's applying for roles and showcase coding abilities?
So if you're trying to apply for the role and let's say like you're mostly a designer who just learned to code,
Mhm.
um, I it depends on, like, the company's like, what they're looking for. Like, obviously, if they're looking for, like, a full design engineer, these days, like, the role's still very, very early. So, like, design engineer roles are generally, like, pretty confident in both sides of the equation. So, like, what you'd probably want to do is just find a company that you want to be a design engineer for and, like, try to, like, get your foot in the door with the position that you, like, are really good at. And, like, if you like during the interview process, what you want to have in your portfolio is not just like your visual designs, but also like the prototypes and like the code results that you have actually done, to show them and say like, hey, like this is like my design skill set. It's like here. And like I'm very interested in contributing to the code side of things. Here's what I can do so far. Like I'm here for the design side, but I would like to start contribute. Like I will contribute and help by being able to do this as well. And then like how that works you have your foot in the door at a company, it's a lot easier to move horizontally to like a new position like design engineer than to try and like hit the ground running in like a position they're trying to fill, both skill sets like firmly like solidified in like how good they are at both of them. So like that's if you're new and you're looking for your first design engineering job, I would just find a company who is like has design engineers and try to get like a design role there. And during the interview process, make yourself more attractive by showing that you can code things and that you're interested in like contributing to that team as well.
Yeah, I think look like if I was a hiring manager and this person expressed that they're interested in sort of design engineering or they're a designer that can code, I would probably expect the their portfolio to be coded, right, and them to highlight it and to be
Hmm.
like, hey, I actually made this and here's all the other things I made. So like I
Totally.
think the best example, or like if you want to do something and when you apply you have to show the work that you want to do, at least,
You can't
right?
just say it, you gotta show it.
Yeah,
That's, like, always been the rule with design and code in general. It's just, like, with these roles and why it's, like, been, generally I would personally say, like, the hiring process for these kinda roles are a little easier because it's very clear. You can look at somebody's work and decide. And, like, if they just don't show the work, they may be incredible, but if they haven't shown the work, like, you can't do anything about that. So, like, rule number job your first job is just to have examples that you can show to prove that you can do what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. And I think there was a follow up on this, which is how do you see the demand for this role increasing? And is it a good path to transition considering the state of the competition of the design market? So basically, UX market is saturated. Should people be transitioning to design engineering?
I think that, like, I've always felt this way that, like, if you want to find a better career path for yourself, be cross discipline. Whatever that cross discipline is. You know, like if you are a designer and you really love doing landing pages, then like get really good at copywriting, get really good at marketing and understanding that type of stuff because then like when you go for the job, then you can say like, hey, I can design this, but I also understand the most optimized way to structure this. Or like, hey, like nobody likes writing copy, but I know how to, and I've like studied. Like I can design and like help write and improve the copy that's there for like better conversion, blah blah blah, etc. Same with design and engineering. Like if you want to be a part of a product team, like if you can write code too, you're just gonna be more attractive than somebody who's like pure UX. Um, there's always nuances to that where it's like sure like somebody who focused purely on like and even within design like you have UX designers and like visual designers. If you are both UX and visual, that's a lot different than some people who are like visual but don't really know how to think through how a user actually uses an application, and like vice versa. There are people who are really good at knowing where the button and like the drop down and the layout, like how the layout should go, but when it comes to like turning that layout into like a finished product, it just feels a little off. So it's like even within design, being able to cross internal disciplines as well is valuable. So I definitely see it being a good path to just like start trying to find other areas, other disciplines in business that you are attracted to and find like enjoyable and just start digging into those because it has never been. I think this is the reason why there are tons of people who have always had those passions and they've also had the drive and the time to put into learning those other disciplines when it was harder to do, and now it's just getting easier and easier to learn new disciplines with the help of AI. Like that's like I think the first thing that like AI is going to successfully do, which is enable people to learn faster. Not necessarily like AI is not going to do everything for you, but AI can definitely learn everything for you. You know, like AI can definitely teach you all of the knowledge that is out there if you are willing to like dig into it. And there are plenty of people who like just couldn't find the information that they are wanting, and now they have like free access to it, and without having to pay for like courses of people like summarizing it for them. So like yes, the answer is yes. It is a good idea to start considering like other disciplines and diving into the ones you're passionate about through like AI helping you like learn, like we've kind of talked about already.
Yeah, yeah. So two questions from me, selfishly.
Go
And
for it.
the first one, because you mentioned the value of cross discipline, seems like you
Hmm.
really like just learning a bunch of things and like mashing it together and figuring out, what happens. So have you found yourself at work and in your personal life, like being like at work, being like, okay, I kind of want to see the product manager side of things,
Hmm.
and the strategy side of things, and then in your personal life, it's like, oh, I kind of want to start this business or do this other stuff. Like, are you just like, you just try to be very cross disciplined because you're just like so hungry for it, or how does that work?
That's just me. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like my the running joke with my wife is like, "Oh, great, Will has a new hobby that he's going to be super passionate about for 6 months and then not touch it again." You know, so like the way I think about it is like I'm like extremely hungry for like that. I guess it's dopamine. Like the dopamine hit of like learning something new and being able to create something out of it. Like there is always a new process that has some creative output that I get like very passionate about and learning how to do it. And then I do that for a little while and I get the hit of like, oh, I figured that new process out and I've created XYZ from it. Now I'm going to move on to do like the next thing. And like the way that I have before I've always felt guilty about that. But I think that, what that has helped me do as I've thought back on my career is like it's really made me what I call like a T-shaped what a bunch of people call like a T-shaped individual, which is just like I do have like a through line of my career where I have devoted a whole lot of time to software. And specifically for me, I have like really doubled down on like the engineering part of things. As I was talking to Chris about this a little bit before, where it's like I came from design to engineering, but then I fell in love with engineering, and so like my design muscle has like I'm not gonna say atrophied, but like the level of like people who have been in their career for the same amount of time as me who focused on their design, like boom, like way better. But like I do both. So there's value in that. And I am now like extremely competent at engineering. And because of like my background in design for the past like little bit, I'm now starting to like really focus back in on like my visual design skill set. And like it's it is starting to see like growth like this, of course, like now that I'm actually putting the focus and attention more into like stretching myself and pushing myself on that. Um, and I think the ability to do that comes because of like the T shape. So I'm very deep on engineering and like software design, but I've explored a whole lot of other mediums and a whole lot of other like creative processes. And so like I've got a very broad knowledge of like how to approach things, how to like get through the that first hump of like learning something new and it not making any sense in your head, and like your head just feels like fuzzy because you're like it's so frustrating, like it feels so difficult because like I'm learning all this new terminology, I don't know how all this works, and then like one day everything kind of like I talk about it like I have glasses. I think about it like putting my glasses back on. Everything was blurry, and then this moment comes where it's like you put your glasses on and like everything's clear because you spent enough time creating in a place where you're uncomfortable that like you now understand it. So like now it's not hard for me to pick up just about anything because it's the same thing. Like I know it's hard to learn it because it's something I don't know, but like I have now trained myself to know, oh, that understanding is coming if I just push through this part that feels fuzzy and difficult. Like I can get there. And so like that's kind of like what I've been doing again lately with like the new visual design stuff I've been trying to do. It's where it's like, oh man, this stuff is so ugly. Like all of this is so bad. Like none of this is good. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't I do a good job on this style of design? And then like I do it for like a couple weeks, just every day. And then suddenly like something clicks and I'm like, okay, never mind. I got it. Like I've got this now. Like let's move on to something new. And like start to like get that and figure that out too. So
Yeah.
the answer is yes. It's just who I am. But there are benefits. Like you need to find like you got to find your T shape, like what you want to go deep on. That is like your foundation. But like there's value from like broadening just like your horizon as well on like the type of skills and the type of things that you've like learned and have as part of your just like professional context.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the final question for me is tell us about your game. What are you building? What is it, dude?
Okay, well, actually, I want to tell you about a different one. So I'll tell you about. This was the end of last year. Um, I started like I've always. This is going to get very technical for some people who might be more design focused. But I'm there's like two types of like approaches to writing code. Generally, there is like object oriented and there's functional programming, and I've always been more attracted to like the functional side of things. If you don't know what these are, like just go ask ChatGPT. It'll give you a very good explanation of them. So like there's like languages that focus on one or the other. So there's like a new language that was out that focused on functional programming. I've always wanted to try, and I've just never had a project where I was like, oh, like let me do this project in this language because it's like I don't want to just do it to just build a website. Like that's kind of boring. I'm already like super fast doing this other thing. And then like one day, my favorite game growing up, I had a Game Boy, um, and there's this game called Final Fantasy Tactics that was just like it's a turn-based game that's like on this. It's kind of like chess, but like fantasy chess is the way you can think about it. And it's in this like isometric view. You have characters that level up. They have different powers. You move them around the board and attack the enemy team. And I was just like, man, how fun would it be to build like that style of game? And then I was like, this other language would be perfect for it. So like I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build this game. And I was like, this project may be, and it turned out to be like the greatest project for somebody who wants to practice being cross-discipline. It is extremely technical. Like building a game engine from scratch is like the real deal. Like I was like, I want to really try to use this language to its fullest. Let me build this game engine from scratch. So I'm doing that. And I'm also like designing characters. So like there's the visual design of it, which is like, oh, I'm actually making these like
Mm.
sprites and these like set designs and all of this like pixel art for this game. There's also like their games aren't just fights, like there's story and there's storyline and all this. So like now I'm like getting to practice storytelling, which is like a big thing that I've been trying to learn a lot lately, just for like I could get into that. I won't get off on that tangent of like why storytelling is really important these days. But like I'm like I could practice my storytelling muscle as well. So it's just this really ambitious project that tied together a lot of different disciplines that I'd been wanting to like explore in a single project that I could share the process of me doing it. And I was like, man, this just seems too fun. So that's kind of like what it was, why I was starting to do it. Um, and then I'm going to a conference called React Miami next week. And one thing that I have been interested in is like in-person soft in like with AI and digital everything, like what's one thing that AI is not going to start like not going to like swallow the world on, and that's I think like in-person experiences and in-person events, etc. And so I came up with this game literally last Friday, and now I'm like scrambling to like get it all coded together and put together for the conference. There's this secret game that I'm gonna do where I've got these. It's like a D20 dice and an NFC tag, and I'm gonna like paint them like metallic-y gold, and like have them in these like little boxes hidden around the venue. There's going to be 8 of them, and when you scan the dice, you get to claim a character in the game. And the way that it'll be 8 people and the way that they get points in the game is by going to meet people and getting them to scan their character gem, as I'm calling it. They're gonna scan it and they get points for meeting new people and for getting them to like support their character. And the more points that they get, the stronger their character gets. And then there'll be fun like little other things where like they can attack and take points from like other players in the game. And they're just gonna be competing the whole conference for like who can meet the most people, like start conversations with them to get them to support their character, then some fun stuff like attacking the other characters just to try and take their points. And then like the hopefully at the end of the conference there's going to be like some prizes for like the top 3 people at the end of the game. So that's like a fun little project that I've like taken on within
That's
like the last week that also falls under like the game stuff. But like all of this is possible because it's like I can code and I can design. So like now I can create these like end-to-end experiences when I come up with them and like actually bring them to life on my own.
That's super cool, man. Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna speak at this conference. How do I make it 10x more amazing? And then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna put my game skills into practice because now I can build the thing. And
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you are taking on a lot, and that's amazing to hear.
It is. We'll see if I actually. I've like. I'm now realizing like I think I'll be able to get like the functional side of it, like the app actually working for like scanning the tag and claiming a character and like collecting points. All that stuff will work. Then I'm like, oh man, now I've got to like actually create a bunch of like pixel artwork for this. I'm like, the as we all know, like the design side of us is always just like, oh, I've pictured the most beautiful thing in the entire world. But it's like, oh, but I've got a very small timeline. So like it's probably not gonna be like the pixel pieces are gonna probably look like the like something from like an Atari back in the day. Like they're gonna be
Just two
garbage, I'm
pixels.
sure, just based on the amount of time that I have to do. Yeah, it's gonna be like these like 8 pixel,
Yeah.
like it's a blob. Oh, now it's a blob with like a red dot that means fire. We'll see how high fidelity I can get the actual artwork to be come time for the
Yeah,
conference.
yeah.
But
I mean, it would be cool to like
either way, I
use
think it'll
your
be it'll be fun.
other sort of characters to plug in as like a teaser to the actual game that you're building, right? If you could just like reuse that.
Yeah, okay, no, that's
Yeah.
a pretty good idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like I'm gonna see how it goes at this conference, and then I have a couple other conferences this year that I'm gonna be at, and I'm like, oh, like this one may be a bit of a rush, but it'll be a good like proof of concept to see if people actually like the game mechanics, even if necessarily like the design finesse is not there due to the timeline. And then I'll have like more time to like hopefully create something more polished before the next ones. But like being able to do some of these like in-person things feels like a really fun thing to explore that I think is going to be more and more valuable as time goes on and AI starts becoming more and more powerful. I think in-person things are just going to be like a new niche that like people will desire a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
more.
exactly. Well, you've been super illuminating in terms of letting us dive into what you do day to day, how you think about this, cross pollination of skills, being T-shaped. But I don't think you're T-shaped. I think you're actually like whatever it's called, like maybe M-shaped, where you have two deep, like whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't even get into like the woodworking stuff that like yeah, I just have too many things that I
Yeah,
enjoy doing. And then also like the most important thing to me is like my family. Like I've got 3 little kiddos. I got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And so it's just like they get all of my time and my priority whenever I'm not working. So it's just like when can I like late nights, early mornings for like all the other stuff that I really care about and am
right,
passionate about
man.
too.
Well, before we let you go, dude, where can folks find you? I think I've got your Twitter here, but where else can folks
Perfect.
find you?
That'd
Yeah.
be that'd be the perfect place to do it. Also, I need to update that banner. Um, for any of y'all that are seeing that now, that is currently closed. I don't have any
Okay.
openings for that. I'll put up like a picture of like my new game stuff or something there. But follow me. I share all the stuff that I'm building and working on. And I just love like if y'all have any questions that y'all want to have like talk to me personally about, like just send me a DM. My DMs are open. I'm always happy to talk to new people in chat. So
Awesome, dude. Well, yeah.
I think that's usually where I spend most of my time just because I don't have like I said, I've got a lot that I do. So like if it's happening, I'm gonna be talking about it there. Otherwise, I'm gonna be not on the internet and hanging out with my family or doing the stuff that I'm actually
For sure, for
passionate
sure.
about.
All right, man. Well, yeah. So, folks, go follow Will on his Twitter or X. I'll drop a link in the description as well, so you guys can actually find it if you're too lazy to scan that QR code. Um, lastly, yeah. So I'm just gonna do wrap up and end this. I'm not sure if you can stick around for a couple of minutes and we can have like a brief debrief. But if you needed to shoot off, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I got
So
time.
let me take you off stage. Thank you again, Will, for coming, and I'll just do some final wrap up for our together. Thanks, dude.
Appreciate it, Chris.
All right. So, to close this off, guys, just want to remind you about today's sponsor. If you're looking for an easier way to conduct user research, go check out Lyssna. It's completely free to sign up and you get $20 off to do your first test. So you can literally schedule a test right now and get results within the hour on, let's just say, a URL like your portfolio or a website that you've been working on. So check out their new feature, the live website testing. So scan that QR code, or click the link in the chat and get $20 absolutely free on Listener to this audience. First 100 users only. So check that out. And I do want to remind you guys that the next live pod is next week. We have uh, an event called How to Be a Growth Designer. So if you're someone who's fascinated with data, measuring conversions, thinking about monetization, how to grow a product, a business, then I think you need to join. This is also, well, it's not as, I guess, popular in terms of new role, in terms of design engineer, but it is still one that's gaining a lot of traction throughout. Everyone needs a growth designer, in my opinion. So if you want to listen to that conversation, again, scan the QR code here or here. Both places are good. And yeah, so to listen to more of these, you can also head to live.uxplaybook.org to get notified. We do these. I think this is the sixth one we've done in a row, or maybe the fifth one we've done in a row every single week. But I will just shoot you an email and it's just a email notification. But apart from that, that's it from me. Until next time, bye. This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.
This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right.